In today's video I'm going to be discussing the golf swing approaching and just post impact. Make sure you check this video out. Movement and turn. Welcome back to the TruGolf Academy. You join me, Jon Watts, today in my back garden. I hope you guys are keeping safe from the coronavirus. That's why I'm still filming some videos at home rather than all out on the golf course at the minute. This video, as I mentioned there in the intro, is going to be about the golf swing approaching impact, into impact and just post impact. And it follows on from a question I got from a previous video where I talked about the wrist angles in the backswing and the downswing. And he just asked whether I could talk a little bit more about the wrists actually as we're approaching and pre-impact. It's a great way to get in touch. It's a great way to ask some questions. If I can film some content that's relevant for you, please get in touch. Just post some comments below while I'm on the subject. If you don't mind hitting the thumbs up to this video, share it with as many golfers as you can, and make sure you subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. It just means you'll never miss another video again. Filming 2 to 3 instructional videos a week. The details also from my social media coming along the bottom of the screen. Well worth checking me out on there also. I'm going to talk a little bit more than just the wrist angles, which is the question I got. I'm going to talk about some checkpoints that I'd look for, and we're going to talk first of all pre-impact, so almost at this last parallel position where the club is at last parallel to the ground. If you want to go into further detail about the backswing, the downswing, I've done plenty of content. I'll put a few links just here in this video as well, so well worth checking those out where we're starting to talk about wrists in the backswing and the start of the downswing. So checkpoints, what would I really look for as we approach the golf ball at this last parallel position? So I'd like to see the club face more matching, mirroring my spine angle, so slightly turned down. I don't mind seeing the toe straight up, almost the leading edge vertical. Definitely don't want to see an open club face where the club face is pointing towards the sky. I tend to see more elite golfers, if anything, more angled down this way, but I'd like to see the leading edge matching spine angle. I'd like to see the club shaft either parallel to my feet line and the target line here, or slightly the club just a little bit behind my hands here in this position. Now what do I need to do to my wrist to be able to achieve that? What I want with my lead wrist is the feeling that my lead wrist, the FootJoy logo here, pointing a little bit more downwards towards the golf ball. And I want to feel that I've got some angle here, some flexion in my trail wrist. So I've actually almost got maintain this angle into impact, so my lead wrist is starting to point a little bit down. It's obviously not extremely down, but a little bit down. I don't want to see all the logo pointing up towards my face because I get that club face wide open. I want to see a little bit of flexion here in my trail wrist. I would like to see that my trail wrist is still got some bend, some flex in there. I don't want it to straighten until just post impact. Okay, so pre-impact, what I talked about is I want to see that club face matching spine, that club either parallel to my target line at the last parallel or just the club slightly behind my hands. To achieve that, what I've got is my lead wrist a little bit rolled down, and I've got some flexion here of my trail wrist. Now what has to happen? My trail wrist has to actually start to work this way more through impact. So I've got to start to lose that angle, a bit like throwing a ball skimming a stone. I've got that angle and I'm actually just releasing it here through the golf ball. What we would see post impact if we went to the opposite and we got to the position where I was parallel to the ground after impact is there's a change in my wrist angles. My lead wrist that was starting to point down is now starting to point more up. So it is changing from this position, going from flexion into some extension of the wrist. And that would mean the toe of the golf club would start to point more up. Okay, so pre-impact, my lead wrist was rolled down a little bit. I've got some flexion here of my trail wrist. I've still got a bit of bend in my elbow. And what's happening into impact is my right arm, my trail arm is starting to straighten and extend. My wrist of my trail hand is now pretty flat, especially just post-impact. It depends on the club that you've got. From mid-iron here, I'd like to still see a little bit of this angle into impact, straightening just after impact. As the ball moves further forwards and my stance longer clubs, I'm going to expect that I'm going to get that trail wrist pretty flat by the time I get into impact. And post impact, that body is rotating, and you will see there's a change in my lead wrist position. That lead wrist has had to actually start to extend here. And that means the toe is more up, the club face has released. But I've released that with body rotation and a change in wrist angle. I haven't released that with a real change of flip of the golf club here. Now, I'm not expecting you to think about what you're doing at this stage of your golf swing when you're playing, but if it's something you struggle with that club face control or any of these parts of it in terms of the wrist angles or the trail elbow, just do some exercises where we come down to the last parallel position, try and get those checkpoints. A little bit of flex in that elbow, the club is at my spine angle and the club's just behind my hands. That means I've got these wrist angles that we were talking about, lead wrist slightly down, I've got that flexion here of my trail wrist, and I just do a little pump movement and turn through the golf ball, and there has been a change of wrist angle of my lead hand, meaning that the toe of the golf club is a little bit more vertical, a little bit more up in the air. What you may see for some elite golfers that have that club face a little bit more turned down pre-impact, like a Dustin Johnson where the lead wrist is pointing a little bit more down, you may see through impact it actually hasn't created quite as much extension of that lead wrist post impact. So where the club face is here will dictate a little bit what the wrists are doing through the golf ball. The really destructive one that I want you all to get out of is that club face open, pointing up to the sky, and you can see I've created this real cupping angle here, this extension of my lead wrist, because that's going to go high right of target unless I use a hell of a lot of hands through impact, and that's very hard to control. So we're just talking about doing lots of impact exercises from that last parallel position here to the first parallel position post impact, just working on impact. And of course you can see if you're doing some airflow balls at home against the house, or if you've got a practice net like this, or you're getting out on the driving range, start line. Can you start the ball down the target line? That tells you where that club face is at the moment of truth. So if we can control that club face better through better wrist angles, fantastic. Again, those checkpoints in this position, some flex in that trail elbow, it is extending just post impact. That club face is matching spine, that club head is just slightly behind my hands. And then I'm just turning through impact here, and there is a change in wrist angle of my lead wrist, teamed with that body rotation. Okay, that will start to happen naturally as long as you've got a half decent golf club. Now, if we're not throttling the golf club in terms of pressure-wise, that body and rotation is really going to start to change that lead wrist angle, going from here, where I've got some flexion, to a little bit of extension in that release post. I hope that answers some of your questions. If you've got any questions, as I said, on this, post some comments below it, any videos you'd like me to see. But it's a great area to work on. It's not something I would ask you to think of on the golf course, but if you can work on that last parallel position to the first parallel position here, starting to control how we release the golf club, and those checkpoints that I mentioned there, they're really going to help you start to control that face better for straighter golf shots and more consistent golf shots. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, as I said at the start, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.